bustling city of Chicago during the early 1980s, the story of Marcy Jo Andrews unfolds like a chilling mystery. Marcy, a 24-year-old with a troubled past, became the center of a tragic disappearance that continues to haunt the city. Marcy Jo Andrews was born in 1960 and grew up amidst family strife. Her parents split shortly after her birth, and her mother, Sarah Andrews, eventually remarried, changing Marcy's last name to Andrews. Despite this, Marcy's life seemed destined for turbulence. By middle school, Marcy was already grappling with a rebellious streak that would lead her into a life of substance abuse. Her high school years saw her dropping out at 16 to work as a cocktail waitress, a decision that marked the beginning of her troubled adulthood. On February 13th, 1984, Marcy's life took a fateful turn. That day, she had spent time babysitting her stepsister while her mother was at work. After a visit from her mother, who drove her back to her apartment, Marcy decided to meet up with her friend Dolores Dory Purnell Garrity. They planned to catch up at Jaime's Elsewhere, a bar where Dory worked. Later that evening, Marcy, Dory, and another friend, Gay Dell, ended up at the apartment of Casey Nowicki, a known local drug dealer. What was meant to be a casual visit quickly spiraled into chaos. The trio had been using drugs and alcohol at Nowicki's place, including PCP, commonly known as angel dust, and marijuana. As the night progressed, Nowicki offered to drive the girls home. However, his reckless behavior soon led to disaster. While driving, Nowicki crashed his white car into a viaduct on Western Avenue. The collision was severe enough that Dory's seat was pushed backward, causing Marcy's ankle to injure badly. Marcy was unable to stand, and Dory feared her ankle might be broken. Nowicki's reaction was frantic and erratic. He didn't want to deal with the consequences of the accident, especially since he didn't have car insurance. He became increasingly agitated, blaming the girls for the crash. When the police arrived at the scene, Nowicki handed the car keys to Dory and Gay, instructing them to wait for a tow truck while he took Marcy to the police station, claiming he would then take her to the hospital. After separating from Nowicki, Dory and Gay attempted to contact Marcy, but their calls went unanswered. When Dory reached out to Nowicki, he was evasive and refused to provide any clear answers about Marcy's whereabouts. Instead, Dory heard the girl's earlier light-hearted message on Nowicki's answering machine, adding to her growing concern. Eventually, Nowicki did call Dory back, but his response was unsettling. He claimed Marcy had left and demanded the car keys. Dory, suspecting that Marcy was in trouble, insisted on seeing her before handing over the keys. When Dory and her friends arrived at Nowicki's apartment, they were met with hostility and threats. Despite their attempts to get a response, including throwing rocks at Nowicki's window, they could not reach Marcy or Nowicki. By February 15th, Marcy's absence was becoming increasingly alarming. Sarah Andrews tried to reach her daughter, but her calls went unanswered. She spoke to Marcy's step-grandmother, who had not heard from Marcy either. Concerned, Sarah began contacting Marcy's friends, including Dory, to gather information. Dory relayed the troubling details of the previous night, leading Sarah to report Marcy missing to the Chicago Police Department. Witnesses later claimed to have seen Marcy drugged, naked, and handcuffed to a radiator in Nowicki's apartment over the next few days. A friend of Nowicki's revealed that Nowicki had mentioned Marcy's death due to a cocaine overdose. But with no physical evidence or body, the case was initially left unresolved. Sarah Andrews was undeterred by the lack of progress. She spent years tracking down leads, distributing flyers, and seeking help from psychics. Her persistence paid off in 2000 when new witnesses came forward, shedding light on Marcy's fate. Their testimonies revealed that Marcy had been drugged, restrained, and ultimately murdered by Nowicki. In October 2000, Casey Nowicki was charged with the first-degree murder of Marcy Jo Andrews. The trial, which took place in 2005, brought to light the horrifying details of Marcy's final days through witness testimonies. Michael John Panisi and Roger Sexton provided crucial evidence describing Marcy's condition and the disturbing events that led to her death. Nowicki was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. The story of Marcy Jo Andrews is one that lingers long after the final page is turned. Even with Casey Nowicki's conviction, the absence of Marcy's body keeps her disappearance shrouded in mystery. For Sarah Andrews, the tireless search for her daughter was a path fraught with hope and heartache, a journey that spanned the remainder of her life. Although Sarah's search for Marcy's remains ultimately ended in disappointment, her unwavering dedication stands as a poignant symbol of a mother's boundless love and the relentless quest for truth. "28-year-old Lola Catherine Fry was undergoing a major life transition. She had quit her job, moved out of Indianapolis, and relocated to Fort Wayne to live with her sister. Lola planned to return to school, reorganize her life, and pursue her dream of finding love and starting a family. In November 1993, she drove back to Indianapolis to collect her remaining belongings. While in town, Lola visited family and friends and decided to attend a party hosted by her former hairdresser. What was intended to be a farewell gathering quickly turned tragic. Lola vanished without a trace that night. The Indiana State Police launched an investigation and discovered inconsistencies regarding the party. Over the years, they unraveled a web of deception, revealing dark and disturbing elements. Lola Catherine Coleman was born on February 20th, 1965, to Vernon and Delia Dale Coleman, making her the fifth child and fifth daughter in the family. She was generally known by her middle name, Kathy. Growing up in Greenwood, a city south of Indianapolis, Kathy was described as quiet and shy, but enjoyed playful activities with her sisters. She often entertained her family by staging fashion shows with her mother's clothes. Her sister Darlene noted that Kathy was a girly girl who loved dolls and dressing up. Kathy attended elementary and middle school in Center Grove and later Lawrence North High School, where she met Martin Fry. After completing her sophomore year, Kathy dropped out, married Martin, and moved to Texas. The marriage, however, was short-lived due to the demands of Martin's military career, leading to their divorce. Kathy returned to Indiana and lived with her parents, retaining her married name as Lola Catherine Fry. Kathy's life took a drastic turn when her mother suffered a stroke, leaving her paralyzed. Kathy, along with her sister Laverne, took on the responsibility of caring for their mother and their younger brother, Christopher. Kathy became very close to Christopher, often stepping in as a mother figure. She maintained frequent contact with her family, calling multiple times a day, even if she couldn't visit in person. By the early 90s, Kathy, now in her mid-20s, still dreamed of having a family, but was cautious due to past experiences. She had grown more confident and socially active, developing close relationships with her nieces and nephews. Despite her strong maternal instincts and desire to have children, she never had that opportunity. Kathy worked at various clubs and bars, eventually landing a job at PT's Show Club in Indianapolis. PT's was a top-rated strip club owned by Bradley Dean Hurst. Kathy's sister Darlene was surprised to see Kathy perform, noting that Kathy initially needed several drinks for the courage. Over time, Kathy became more comfortable with the job, though it took a toll on her health. She befriended John Riker, a local man, whose initially caring demeanor turned abusive, leading to violent confrontations. Riker's connection with Hurst, Kathy's boss, allowed him easy access to her. Kathy, standing 5'3" and weighing about 120 pounds, faced pressure to undergo cosmetic enhancements, such as breast implants. Despite their popularity, the implants caused her painful side effects due to a botched procedure. Kathy, along with other dancers, filed a lawsuit in July 1992 against Hearst, Dr. Charles E. Hughes III, and related companies for harassment, negligence, and fraud. Kathy gave depositions for the lawsuits, but disappeared between November 13th and 14th, 1993, just before her final deposition. Known for calling her parents frequently, her sudden silence raised alarm. By November 18th, her sister Laverne reported her missing to the Fort Wayne police. The case was handed over to the Indiana State Police, covering multiple jurisdictions. In their efforts to gather more information about Lola Catherine Fry's disappearance, investigators entered her details into national crime databases and issued a nationwide alert for her vehicle, listing its description and license plate. The car's disappearance was a significant concern since vehicles are typically recovered in missing person cases. Investigators also focused on Kathy's former boyfriend, John Riker, who claimed to have spent the night with Kathy on November 13th, 1993. Riker stated that Kathy had driven to a former Chi-Chi's restaurant where she left her car while they attended a party at the Williamsburg North Apartments. Riker's residence was less than 3 miles from the restaurant, making it odd that Kathy didn't leave her car at his home. After picking Kathy up, Riker claimed they went to the party, then returned to his house. He said Kathy slept on his couch and that he discovered her missing along with her car the next morning. Investigators found no immediate evidence to contradict his story, but found inconsistencies. Riker underwent a polygraph test, which Darlene Fry later claimed he failed, particularly on questions regarding his involvement in Kathy's disappearance. Police interviewed other party attendees, whose stories matched Riker's initial account. However, as the investigation progressed, they wondered if something had occurred during the drive from Riker's home to Kathy's destination. With no concrete leads, the case began to grow cold. The media covered Kathy's disappearance, and her family actively searched and distributed flyers, but they received no help from Riker, who only reiterated his version of events when contacted. Sergeant Ron Bruce of the state police, initially in charge of the case, noted the unusual nature of Kathy's disappearance, given her daily contact with her family. Despite numerous tips about sightings of her vehicle, no solid evidence emerged. The family, frustrated by the lack of progress, took matters into their own hands, organizing fundraisers and hiring private investigators. Kathy's father, Vernon, voiced doubts about the effectiveness of the state police and believed external help was necessary. By late 1994 and into 1995, with no new developments, the family's frustration grew. The police continued to receive sporadic tips about sightings of Kathy's car, but none led to its recovery. In 1999, after a period without updates, the family learned no investigator was assigned to the case. They expressed their dissatisfaction publicly, prompting Indiana State Police First Sergeant Stoney Vann to take over the case. Sergeant Vann quickly made significant progress by re-interviewing key individuals from the party. New testimonies revealed that after the party, Kathy may have suffered a medical emergency, possibly an overdose. Witnesses stated she was carried out and placed in Riker's car, and later saw her wrapped in a blanket. Despite Riker's insistence that Kathy was alive when they left, investigators questioned why they didn't seek medical help if it was an overdose. The revised investigation suggested that Kathy's death was likely between the late hours of November 13th and early morning of November 14th, either from an overdose or other foul play. Sergeant Vann obtained a search warrant for John Riker's Greenwood home, where Kathy was last seen alive. The affidavit suggested Kathy had either fallen unconscious or died after attending a party with Riker on November 13th. Searches were conducted at multiple locations, including Riker's apartment, his business, and properties linked to Jeff Schaefer. Evidence indicated Riker was the last person to see Kathy, and witnesses claimed Jeff Schaefer helped move her body to a car with Riker. However, no blood was found on the seized items, and no body was recovered, making it difficult to proceed with charges. In hopes of finding more evidence, several people were called to testify before a grand jury. Among them was Tim Schaefer, who reportedly expressed fear of long-term incarceration. However, no indictments were issued as witnesses could not confirm Kathy's death at the time of her removal from the apartment. If Kathy's death was an accidental overdose, there would be no crime to prosecute, only potential charges for improper disposal of a body or vehicle theft. But the statute of limitations had passed. Without Kathy's body or clear signs of homicide, it was unlikely anyone would face charges. The case's lack of progress was a painful ordeal for her family, who felt that the information needed to bring Kathy home was being withheld. Darlene Fry, Kathy's sister, expressed the anguish of not being able to give Kathy a proper burial. In 2002, Marin County prosecutor Scott Newman acknowledged that all leads had been pursued with no progress. The case remained open, but the lack of concrete evidence or a body made further action challenging. In June 2003, Lake County Sheriff's Captain Hank Waranka and his team searched a property in Perry Township, Indiana, based on a tip about someone digging there. Although no relevant evidence was found, this search led to further investigations. In October 2003, the Indiana State Police conducted interviews and searched the Wicker Road area using various tools, including ground-penetrating radar, bulldozers, and cadaver dogs. They were investigating potential links to other missing persons, but found no remains. Notably, Larry Lee Ballard, a former resident of the area serving a sentence for drug-related crimes, escaped from prison shortly after the search began. His escape seemed suspicious, possibly linked to fears of evidence being uncovered, but no significant discoveries were made in connection with his escape. The search continued with various efforts, including a 2004 underwater search at Eagle Trace Retention Pond, which yielded no new evidence. In 2005, Darlene visited Jeff Schaefer's former property, where she found a suspiciously constructed cellar and an area indicated by radar and cadaver dogs. Despite this, the search yielded no new information, and the property changed ownership, making further investigation difficult. In 2013, Kathy's case was added to a set of Indiana cold case playing cards to garner new tips, but her family believed the answers might lie at the bottom of the lake. Unfortunately, property ownership issues have prevented a search of the lake. So what did happen to Lola Fry? She was known to have been in a tumultuous relationship with David Mays, a notorious enforcer in a local gang. Their relationship was marked by tension, as evidenced by their missed appointment to apply for a marriage license in early December, suggesting Fry's reluctance to continue the relationship. Her last known contact with her family was on December 1st, and she failed to return home for Christmas, a tradition she had never missed. Fry's disappearance was troubling not only because she was last seen leaving her job at Babe's Showgirls West on Lafayette Road, but also because Mays was the last person known to be with her. Despite being charged with Fry's murder in 2002, Mays was acquitted. The prosecution struggled with the fact that Fry's body had never been found, which significantly weakened their case against him. Adding complexity to the case, there were theories linking Fry's disappearance to her legal battles against Brad Hurst, a club owner, Dr. Charles Hughes, a plastic surgeon, and Dow Corning, the manufacturer of breast implants. Fry, along with others, had filed lawsuits accusing these entities of malpractice and coercion related to breast implant surgeries. Dr. Hughes, who had treated Fry, was alleged to be involved in fraudulent activities involving insurance claims for procedures. Some speculated that Hughes might have wanted Fry silenced to prevent exposure of the scam. However, Hughes passed away in November 2012, and there was no substantial evidence connecting him directly to Fry's disappearance, or suggesting he would resort to murder to cover up his activities. Moreover, there were allegations of corruption within the state excise police, who were said to have frequented strip clubs and might have turned a blind eye to illegal activities in exchange for sexual favors from dancers. This potential corruption could have influenced the investigation, or the lack thereof, as Fry's family suspected that law enforcement's connections to individuals like Hearst might have impacted the handling of her case. The most compelling theory revolves around a party Fry attended on December 13, 1993, at the apartment of Jo Schaefer, who was also her mother's hairdresser. According to John Riker, Fry's former boyfriend, they attended the party together. Riker, then 42 at the time, claimed that after a night of partying, he drove Fry to his home, where she left the next morning. However, his story became increasingly suspect when two of the other partygoers, Tim Schaefer and Stephen Chaffee, later changed their accounts. They revealed that Riker had slapped Fry during a dispute, leading to her being left alone with him and Jeff Schaefer. The new account suggested that after the fight, Schaefer, Riker, and others went to a gay club on Massachusetts Avenue, leaving Fry behind. Upon returning, Fry was found unconscious, either having collapsed in the bathroom or being carried into the bathroom already incapacitated. Despite the heavy partying involving alcohol, prescription pills, and drugs like cocaine, the exact cause of Fry's condition remained unclear. What is certain is that she was wrapped in a blanket and reportedly carried out to a car, which was then driven away by Riker and Jeff Schaefer. Jeff later returned alone to the apartment, and Fry was never seen again. Geographically, Riker's home was about 26 miles from the apartment, and Schaefer's residence was over 50 miles away. The logistics of disposing of Fry's body in her car suggest it could have been done within a few hours, fitting the timeline provided by the witnesses. Many believe Fry's body was disposed of in a nearby lake, Schaefer Lake, which covers over 100 acres. However, searches for her body have been hindered by private ownership of the land around the lake, preventing thorough investigations. Despite the passage of time and the death of key individuals involved in the case, including Jo Schaefer and Jeff Schaefer, Riker remains a person of interest. He has consistently maintained his story, which many find implausible. In a twist, it's reported that Riker threatened Jo Schaefer into silence when Schaefer appeared to be struggling with the guilt of not speaking up about Fry's disappearance. Schaefer's reluctance to come forward even on his deathbed has only added to the mystery surrounding the case. The main question remains: was Fry's death an unfortunate accident or a result of foul play? The potential scenarios include accidental overdose, coerced drug use, or even a fatal act of violence. The lack of definitive answers and the absence of her body make it challenging to establish the exact sequence of events. The secrecy and fear surrounding the case suggests that those involved might have known more than they admitted and went to great lengths to cover their tracks. Fry's family continues to seek justice and closure. They hope that someone with knowledge about the case will come forward, providing information that could lead to resolution. Her disappearance remains an open and cold case, with many unanswered questions about what truly happened to Lola Catherine Fry. If anyone has information, they are encouraged to contact the Indiana State Police or Crime Stoppers of Central Indiana. What's your thoughts on today's cases? Going to release a few shorter videos while I get used to doing this again, but it's pretty awesome. Don't forget to check us out at our TikTok at Cold Case Project, where I will be sharing these and additional videos. God bless and take care, everyone.